When you play a game as a kid, and then you don't think about it for years, your memory of it can morph into a weird half memory, almost like you're remembering a dream, and you can't recall how much of it actually happened. And for the longest time, that game for me was Spanky's Quest. I had a faint memory of a monkey who'd bounced a ball around, but when I first played it for the show, it turned out to be even weirder than I remembered. And this may not come as a huge shock, but guess what? It's still weird as hell. Hey everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Completionist New Game Plus, the show where I take a second look at the games I previously completed, all 120 of them, right here on the channel. More on that in the description box down below. Have you ever played a game from your childhood when you were older, where you remember it so fondly because you were a kid? Maybe your parent got you the game on a whim, or you went to Blockbuster, remember that place, and you rented the game, and in your mind's eye you were like, wow, that game was awesome. I don't remember its name, but I loved it. Spanky's Quest is one of those games. And I'm not even so much sure nowadays that I actually love it, but what I do know is that, full disclosure, the YouTube algorithms are not going to like this video, so hopefully you guys at home do. So I'm asking this as a favor. I don't really do this kind of thing. If you like the show and you want to see this video, let alone you want to support the show, hit the like button, leave a comment, and watch to the very end. With that said, today we're going to talk about one of the weirdest games I've ever played on the show, Spanky's Quest. Let's begin. Okay, look, I wasn't expecting Spanky's Quest to be some sort of forgotten masterpiece or anything. I mean, dear God, it's called Spanky's Quest. You pretty much know right away what it is that you're signing up for. Factor in the vaguely unsettling box art, and it's not hard to see why this game was not successful. But this thing is also super weird, which almost makes it work better as a half-remembered piece of childhood trivia, consigned forever to haunt the back of your mind with the occasional memory of that weird-ass monkey game you can't remember the name of. Or at least, that was my experience, and I feel safe in assuming that it was everyone else's as well, because even just trying to describe this game makes me feel like a crazy person. And that's fine with Spanky's Quest, which doesn't really make an effort to explain anything at all, although things are apparently explained slightly more in the Japanese version. But here, we're not even really given confirmation that this monkey we're following is Spanky, but come on! Yeah, it's him, it's his quest, just look at him. So, while Spanky is frolicking in the woods, a bunch of bricks fall around him, and he wakes up trapped in a castle, I guess? Some kind of structure. And there's a witch there, and she's got a crow. And then you have to escape said castle, except a bunch of the levels are outdoors or underwater. Again, I don't know. To clear each area, you need to find a certain number of keys, and Spanky can defeat enemies by bouncing this weird ball on the top of his head, which then bursts into various types of sports balls, depending on how many times you bounced it. I can hear the words coming out of my mouth, and I know it's right, but it just sounds like gibberish. I'm honestly at a bit of a loss with this one, you guys. There's not a lot to say here other than to point out how goddamn weird it is on essentially every level. It definitely hasn't somehow gotten less weird since the last time I played it, although it's definitely amazing to me that nothing about this game registered as being bizarre when I was a kid. And to be frank, I have two people to blame for this game: my mom and my dad. We went to Blockbuster a lot because they wouldn't buy me new games very often, and they said, grab this one, and I listened to them because a cute monkey, and I ended up liking this game, but once again, I forgot its name until I started doing the show. And yeah, I know that kids will watch or play basically anything, but a monkey throwing sports-related balls at evil fruit and veggies just slotted right into my idea of normal video game stuff, alongside plumbers who jump on turtles. I mentioned before that this game works better as a weird wisp of a childhood memory than it does as, like, an actual game that you can play. Because playing Spanky's Quest the first time as an adult, and again now, feels like trying over and over again to explain to someone how crazy your dream was last night. I know it may have been wild on the inside of your brain, but out in the world, it kind of just reads like a bunch of unconnected nonsense. And it's a shame because there are a couple of ideas here that would actually be pretty cool if they didn't feel so random and haphazard. Take Spanky's bubbling, for instance, which is basically his only way of defeating enemies. If you bounce the bubble once, it turns into a baseball that can damage a single enemy. If you bounce it twice, you get a line of soccer balls. 3 times gets you a rotating vortex of volleyballs. And 4 times makes it rain basketballs because yes, of course it does. Why does Spanky have a bubble? I don't know. And why does it contain balls from a variety of sports? I really don't know. But the central idea of a projectile that changes depending on how many times you juggle it is actually a pretty cool one. And if it wasn't so visually confusing, it would be really novel. But I'm just as baffled by the sports element as I was last time, even if it wasn't something I thought to question when I was a kid. I'm also still frustrated by the fact that you can't freeze the bubble at any certain stage, which makes it easier to rain basketballs than it is to use the other attacks. And the basketballs are fine, but I'm still all about the volleyballs, which form a little cyclone of death, and are easily the best of the 4 attacks. The same goes for the other big mechanic, which is finding keys to progress through the levels. This is a tried and true video game mechanic, but Spanky's Quest still finds a way to make it feel weird. Some areas have more keys than keyholes, and if this whole key collecting element feels like an afterthought, that's probably because of the other version of this game, for the Game Boy, doesn't even have keys. You just have to defeat all the enemies, which makes a little more sense for this type of game. Although you also can use your bubble to knock away bricks that reveal secret doors, which acts as bonus levels where you have to bounce a giant bubble around until you get a power-up. And sure, these break up the monotony of the main levels a little and put the focus on the game's big mechanic, which is, bouncing stuff. We all know how much monkeys love to bounce stuff on their heads, right? Again, it's fine in theory, but it feels disconnected from everything else. And just like every element of this game's world and story, which I was somehow just as baffled by it as I was last time. After getting trapped in a magically appearing building by a witch and her crow familiar, it seems like a pretty straightforward setup. Escape the castle. Cool, no problem. I've escaped plenty of video game castles before. Except the second world looks like San Francisco, and then you go underwater. And a bunch of these levels are outdoors and clearly not related to this witch or magical castle at all. Which not only raises the question of how exactly he fits so many fruits and veggies in there, but also why this game wants to portray them as evil.
Every villain is lemons, otherwise known as evil.
None of the stuff struck me as weird when I was a kid. It was all just colorful and fun and distracting. But now it just raises so many questions because there are so many random elements like sports and witches and bubbles and monkeys, and they all compete with each other rather than adding up to any sort of coherent whole. If there had just been the slightest bit more theming around a couple of central concepts, it could have worked. Like the sports, for instance, or the fact that this monkey has made enemies of a witch somehow. One of the few consistent elements is that witch's pet crow, which will come and attack you if you take too long to finish a level and can't be killed or evaded. It was really frustrating, but at least it was consistent. And prior to the final fight against this upsettingly persistent crow and his witch friend, all of the other boss fights are against fruits and vegetables, which again, seem like it's sending a weird message, but whatever, it's fine. After defeating all 5 worlds, you have to defeat a parade of all of the bosses via a boss rush before you get to fight the last boss. And if you die, you start all the way back at the beginning of the boss gauntlet because everything about this game is just kind of haphazard and all over the place. Which is weird because it's also incredibly straightforward from a completion standpoint. Beat all the worlds, kill the bosses, and find the bonus bounty levels, and that's it. It's a really quick and straightforward experience made weird and confusing by all sorts of competing ideas. I honestly kind of wish I left this game in the depths of my childhood memories where it belongs, or where I could enjoy it forever as a remnant of my SNES glory days. But now I've played it 3 times, and it's only managed to get more confusing as I've gotten older, which is actually kind of impressive in a weird way. Look, Spanky's Quest was one of the very first games I ever played on a Super Nintendo. And honestly, there's a reason that it very quickly slipped into the back of my mind, especially as I was growing into the completionist I am today. Because there is basically no completion bonus to speak of here, and really no unlockables of any kind outside of the bonus levels. which is as annoying as it always is, but at least with Spanky's Quest, it meant I only had to play through its 5 worlds one time, as long as I was careful to make sure that I had found all the secret doors. And sure, I do love a good secret door, and some of the power-ups here are fine, but the game never incentivized me to play it again, outside of the general desire to understand just what the fuck was going on, but I honestly don't think there's any number of playthroughs that would help me make heads or tails of Spanky in his weird-ass world. Once I beat the witch, who is apparently named Morticia, it was all over, and after a couple of hours of bubble bouncing and confusion, I get to do exactly what I did after I played this game as a kid. Forget all about it again. While I recompleted Spanky's Quest, there were 50 levels spread across 5 worlds, all of which were contained inside one castle, I think. No matter how many times I played this game, I don't think I'll ever understand it. 7 bosses defeated, including the witch Morticia and her obnoxiously persistent crow. I actually forgot about the boss golem at the end of the game that sends you back to the beginning if you die, so I got to be mildly irritated by all that stuff over again, which, you know, was fun. About 2.5 hours of total playtime. This game seemed so much longer when I was a kid. And 4 attacks that correspond to different kinds of sports balls, because monkeys love sports. Everyone knows that. They can't get enough volleyball. I'm going to try and sum up Spanky's Quest as briefly as I can, okay? Spanky's Quest is about a monkey, I think, named Spanky, I think, who likes to attack fruits and vegetables with various different balls from sports, like basketball, baseball, and volleyball, and who is trapped inside of a castle that also might be San Francisco, that also might be an underwater palace, that also might be the woods. You collect keys to get out, and then you fight gigantic-ass vegetables and fruits, and then you do it again, and then you fight Morticia and her pet bird, Crow. This is that game where you look at the box art and go, I've had enough. So, with that in mind, guys, I still get this game my completionist rating of look at it. As in, yeah, I'll look at the box art. I don't need to play that game. Look at it.
Look at it.